really excited to have everyone here this morning for a really special announcement with our friends from Google. So just to start here, I am going to invite Sabrina from Google to come up and give us some opening remarks.
Hi, everybody, and thank you, Cam. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Thank you to inviting me to this year's Upper Bound Conference. So I'm Sabrina Geremia. I'm the VP and Country Manager in Google in Canada. And, you know, for years I've been hearing about the buzz that's been surrounding this entire event and this amazing, really amazing, vibrant tech ecosystem that you have blossoming here in Edmonton and across the entire province of Alberta. And I've also heard you have a pretty good hockey team. So go Oilers tonight. I'm all in. I'm very excited about it, and I'm really, really excited to be here and experiencing it firsthand. So we're really fortunate to have some of the key drivers of this ecosystem growth that are joining me on stage shortly, including Minister Glubish. And it's in large part thanks to the work that he and his government have done that has really made Alberta a leader in technology. So Minister Glubish, thank you. You know, your vision, it really has been instrumental in fostering an environment and a place where AI and technology can succeed. So a big thank you. So as many of you know, Canada really has been a leader in AI research. And we've been doing it for years. And we've had a lot of really great work also done here in Edmonton by researchers in the primary research field of AI. But now we have this other point in time where we have this incredible opportunity to translate this really amazing world-class research leadership into widespread adoption. And that's about putting AI to work to make a positive difference in our lives, in our jobs, building stronger, more resilient communities across the country. And the potential is very big. So generative AI alone could boost Alberta's economy by $27 billion, and it could save the average worker over 175 hours a year. And this is according to a report that we commissioned from Public First. But this upside isn't really guaranteed, right? We can't seize this opportunity unless we're preparing our future workforce. So we need to help the students of tomorrow use the AI tools of today. And the good news, and this is great news, is that Canadians really they're up for the challenge. So that same report that we did showed that around 63% of Canadian workers really want this skilling. They want AI skilling. It even goes higher to 72% if you start talking to younger people. And that enthusiasm, that desire to learn, that desire to upskill and learn the tools of today is really what the country needs right now. And so with that today, I'm here to announce that Google.org is providing more than $5 million to the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute, Amii, to boost AI skills for Canadian post-secondary students to help prepare them for the future of work. And with this funding, Amii is going to establish a national consortium of 25 post-secondary institutions to develop easy-to-use AI curriculum materials for instructors and for students. And it's really allowing the faculty to integrate AI and AI skilling into the existing curriculum. So whether you're planning to become an engineer, a doctor, an artist, or like many of you in this room, an entrepreneur or a leader in business, AI will play a role in your career. And I think this initiative is really about giving basic understanding of AI and giving the tools of tomorrow to the students of today to make them more prepared for the job market after graduation. So importantly for all of you here today, this is going to cultivate our next wave of skilled talent for your organizations and the research initiatives that you're all working on. So our mission at Google, it really is to make AI helpful for everyone. And this announcement is just one step in our commitment to making this vision a reality in Canada. So thank you, and I really look forward to our discussion.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. You know, it's really great to finally be able to talk about this. We've been talking with you and your team about this for a while, and just incredibly excited about the impact that we're going to have together, on the province and the country in just this incredibly important area. As Sabrina mentioned, Alberta's been longtime leaders in artificial intelligence, and a lot of that is because of the deep foundational investment that the province has been making in AI for decades. and one of the people who now leads technology and innovation in the province, and who has been both a longtime supporter in his current role as minister, but before as an investor and as a champion of the tech community writ large in Edmonton and Alberta, is Minister Glubish. And so it's my pleasure to invite Minister Glubish to the podium to make some brief remarks.
Well, thanks, Cam, and thanks, everybody. Good to be here with you today. And thank you, Sabrina, for this great announcement on the curriculum funding. This is going to be a game changer. It's so important. You know, it was just a couple of years ago that AI really burst onto the mainstream consciousness with the development of ChatGPT, and so now, you know, you probably know everybody you talk to is talking about AI in one way, shape, or form. But you guys are all here because you know that Alberta has been a leader in AI research and development long before it was cool, long before it was mainstream. In fact, it was 20 years ago that we invested as a province into what now has become the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute. And that was when we recruited Dr. Richard Sutton here and built a team around him. And it is that work that began 20 years ago that has led to where we are today as a global powerhouse in AI research. But what comes next? What comes next beyond just research? Well, the challenge that Canada faces over the next number of years is how do we up our game with businesses and governments adopting AI across everything they do to increase their productivity, to solve problems in new ways, to think about new ways to tackle the challenges that the next 10 years are going to hold for us. And so that is why this announcement from Google to partner with Amii and to help fund the development of curriculum to make sure it is integrated across the board in every program is going to be so important. And so as a government, I want you to know that we are invested heavily in making sure that Albertans and Alberta businesses and even the Alberta government are positioned well to succeed, to be rapid adopters of AI. And I'll give you just one example of how we're doing that now, and then I'll look forward to getting into maybe some more in the conversation. But one of the things that we often have to do in the government of Alberta is to develop a privacy impact assessment. So, you know, whatever we might be doing, if we're handling data on any type of topic, we have to file a privacy impact assessment with the Privacy Commissioner. And the work for that usually takes about 2 months of full-time work. Well, my deputy minister, who comes to us just in October of last year, who has a lot of expertise in actually developing AI tools, he helped us build a privacy impact assessment generator that is trained on all of the legislation, all of the regulation, and all of the policy in government that defines a privacy impact assessment. And then he helped us to automate the process to upload what are the data sets we're talking about, who are the people inside a government that are allowed to use it, and what are the purposes that it can be used for. And it can automatically, in minutes, generate that privacy impact assessment. Now you can imagine when the government and every public body, every post-secondary institution, every municipality, every agency, including Amii and Alberta Innovates, whenever they're dealing with this type of information, they have to fill out a privacy impact assessment. If we can give them a tool that is AI empowered, they can let them do it in minutes and guarantee their compliance with the law, how cool is that? So this is one example out of dozens that we're working on at the government of Alberta to be leaders in using AI, and hopefully those types of stories will inspire many folks in the private sector to join us in this pursuit. So the future's bright. Amii and Alberta together are on the forefront of this on the Canadian stage and on the global stage. And thanks so much for being here for Upper Bound. I think it's going to be a great week.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Minister. Excited to dive into the conversation. Maybe just, Kyle, one last piece before we dive in. Been really fortunate to work with Google.org and work with the ministry on driving forward, not just, the leadership on the research side of artificial intelligence, but really making sure as we talk about at Amii, we talk about AI for good and for all, and making sure that for all part is deeply ingrained in what we do, and we provide opportunities like that as much as possible. So big thank you. Maybe we can give a round of applause again to Google.org for this investment. All right, with that, we are going to dive in and have a bit of a panel discussion around this. And so maybe to start, and I'm going to ask all of our panelists to answer this one. Right now we are leaders. We talk about this a lot in Canada. We're leaders in AI research, and we're not necessarily leading at the same level on commercialization and adoption. And so, what do we need to do to be able to close this gap and to be able to lead on both of those pillars at the same time and really take advantage of this incredible depth of expertise that we're developing here in the country? So, what do we need to do to drive that forward? And I'll go this way. I'll start with you, Minister.
Sure. Well, thanks, Cam. So the way I look at this is there's some short-term, mid-term, and long-term things that we can be doing. There's no one silver bullet. This has got to be a comprehensive strategy. And so, on the long-term side, I'll start with midterm. On the midterm side, I think this post-secondary curriculum that we've talked about briefly here today is going to be critically important, because the folks who will go through that programming are going to, as soon as they complete that, they're going to be going off to building a business or joining a business or a research project or whatever, and they're going to be using those skills with the benefit of all of that AI training to go and become orders of magnitude more productive. On the long term, we need to also be thinking about how can we integrate similar training that is age appropriate for K-12 students. And I do mean right from kindergarten on up. We need to begin teaching kids what is artificial intelligence, how do these tools work, how will they help us to be more productive in everything we do. And so that's something that we're looking to as a government to lay the groundwork, so that my son, he's in kindergarten right now. I want to make sure that he's learning these skills so that 12 years from now, whatever he does next, he can be prepared for a successful future. On the short term, though, what I really am focused on is how do we lead by example as a government? Because it's true that in Canada we're really lagging in adopting not just AI but technology in general. And as a former venture investor, for me, I know the power of technology. I've seen it. I've benefited from it from the perspective of an investor. And for me, what I'm trying to do is to illustrate to folks out across Alberta to say, if you join us in implementing technologies like this, what that will unlock for you and for your business is going to be so exciting that you'll never want to turn back. And so how do we do that? Well, we tell some stories, some inspirational stories. So for me, that's talking about Alberta's best and brightest technology companies, talking about our best and brightest researchers, and highlighting what are they working on and why is it exciting? Why is it going to change the world? And how is it that AI is a crucial foundational part to what they're doing? And then on top of that, then we need to lead by example as a government adopting these technologies. And so that was why we recruited Janet Alford, who's my new deputy minister, to join us in October, because he's not just a lifelong bureaucrat. He actually isn't a lifelong bureaucrat. He has been an entrepreneur. He has been a technologist. He has built AI tools himself. It's funny. We all go away for the weekend, and then I go back into my constituency to work with my local constituents in Sherwood Park, and then I come back on a Monday, and he's like, "Hey, check out this new tool I built on the weekend," and I published a big video on it on LinkedIn to tell people about this open source platform that I built on AI. And so this is the kind of guy I've got who's helping me on the execution of implementing more technology in the government of Alberta. So I gave the example of the privacy impact assessment. We're using AI tools to automate a lot of our government procurement processes. We're starting in the technology procurement side. And so the more and more that we are able to implement these tools to make the government more productive, I think then we can tell that story, and not only will businesses say, well, if the government can do it, surely I can. But I think the general public will say, okay, this AI stuff that I don't really understand what it is, well, the government used it to do this common sense thing, and now the service that I'm getting is better. Okay, I think I need to pay more attention to this and start looking for ways to integrate it into my own life. So that's kind of a three-step. So lead by example and tell stories about successful stories to get people inspired. Focus on the post-secondary education curriculum to integrate it across the board, and then focus on the K-12 system as well.
Awesome, thanks. Sabrina.
Well, it's a big opportunity, right? Like, this is a transformative technology right now, and the adoption question is broad because it's applicable to everything. It's applicable to government, it's applicable to schooling, it's applicable to business. And I mentioned the upside earlier. It's $230 billion upside just from Gen AI for Canada. But if we're slow in adopting versus our global peer set, it's going to take us longer and we will fall behind. So right now, it's really hard to measure adoption, but Deloitte just came out with a business view, and 26% of Canadian businesses have actually implemented a use case. That's roughly 10 points behind our global peers. I talk to a lot of the leaders in business in Canada. Almost all of them have use cases, right? But it's the point of when they're implementing and when they're scaling them. So if you kind of take back, okay, well, how do we not fall behind? How do we move up? And, you know, we can catch up, right? We can actually start to accelerate. I think your lighthousing is so, so important. It's like finding places where it really works and scaling it. One of the issues that I often see is, I call it pilot paralysis, where you want to spin up 20 different pilots and use cases, and then 3 of them work, but they don't actually make it out of the gates. And I think that's so important, is to scale what works, right? I also think, you know, we need a bold and responsible view. I think like balancing the opportunity and the risk is so important. One of the researches that we've seen is that when you get it in the hands of people, when you get it in the hands of businesses, that fear of the unknown a little bit kind of goes down, and people start using it and understanding the application of it. And getting it into the hands of the leaders of tomorrow, which is what our announcement is about today, is so important, because as they're using it, as they're starting to develop use cases, as they're starting to figure out ways to scale it, that's really important. But we have to do that together, right? Like trying to figure out how to integrate this into the school system. It's a team sport, so getting us all together is really, really important. So I would say, you know, bold and responsible, scale what works, and prepare the leaders of tomorrow with the tools of today.
Thanks, Tamara.
So I think the thing that we have to keep in mind too is, you know, if we're slow in adoption, we're also going to start to slip as being that country that is a beacon for education across the world, right? So we love to talk about how Canada is the second best educated nation in the world, but to the point of what happens if we lag, well, then we're going to start slipping. We also have to start to recognize that regardless of how anybody feels about AI, it's here to stay. And so we have to adapt the way that we teach to the full reality of what it means. We have a tendency in academia to just focus on the ethical side of it, right? Like, don't plagiarize, don't cheat on your assignments, right? Don't use ChatGPT to finish off your work. But there's so much more transformative potential available there to address the challenges that we have in business in general. So we have to move beyond plagiarism and ethics. Those are still very important. They still need to be embedded in curriculum, but we need to move to scaling up different kinds of applications and use cases, different kinds of services that are AI supported, and all of that therefore has to get built into the curriculum. And I know that we're going to talk later probably a little bit about just what some of the challenges are in doing that, but I think that's where some of this, I think, is going to be crucial to really help Canada move forward into this.
Awesome. You know, it's a great lead into my next question for you. You know, there are more and more AI courses out there. So this isn't just, okay, the world needs another AI course. Actually getting it into in-context learning and in-context curriculum, you know, is one of the things we're really excited about this. And one of the things that we think is really important. So it's not just literacy for the sake of literacy, which is still good. We need people to understand this, but it's also literacy in the area that they're interested in, and the combination of the two, the intersection of it. I like to say it's like people who are bilingual, who speak 2 languages, and, you know, not just French and English in Canada, but how do you speak bio and AI, health and AI, art and AI at the same time? And so I think that you're grappling with this right now, you know, as an educator and integrating it into your curriculum. Can you talk a little bit about how you're thinking about that and how you're thinking about getting this into curriculum in a field that's changing pretty quickly?
So one of the things we're looking at is ways to move beyond the standard, because I'm a tech dean, right? So we're trying to move it beyond the standard computer science idea of we create some code and we launch a platform and away it goes, right? There is much more use case to it than just that. So for example, one of the ways that we're potentially looking at doing AI at NATE is to consider what would it look like to have an interdisciplinary program that looks at the implications and uses of AI across human services. So whether that's government, health, education, social services, right? And in what way can AI, when you can look at those as a lens, help us to extend the reach of the people that we can help, that we can stand up and support, especially in a country as large as ours, right? and help us to really reach into communities that are otherwise getting overlooked. And so we're looking beyond just prompt engineering or just simple writing of code to think about how does it impact businesses and industries and occupations across the realm, and not just within technology development.
Awesome. Minister, you've talked about the direction for AI and how you're integrating AI into the ministry. Can you talk a little bit about AI in the strategy for technology and innovation more broadly in the province and what you're looking at driving forward, and this piece around the integration of AI into almost everything, and how that may impact what the province is driving forward in technology and innovation, period?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, at a foundational level, you can't have mass adoption of AI if you don't have the AI compute infrastructure. And so that's maybe the foundation of our strategic thinking right now is how do we make sure that in Alberta we have access to secure sovereign compute for government, for our own applications, so that we have complete confidence that all of our data and all of the tools that we're using to train new AI-powered technologies is in a safe and secure environment that we control, that's not at risk of being sucked into a foreign country and embedded into their intellectual property. How do we make sure we're building things in Alberta for the benefits of all Albertans? And so to that end, we have begun investing in some sovereign compute infrastructure. I know that's something you're also working at Amii, which we fully support. So we've set up our first tranche of NVIDIA AI chips into our own little data center, and this way we can do rapid pilot projects of training on sensitive data that the government is a steward of, to build new tools and solve problems in new ways, and know that we can confidently say everything is secure, everything is to our privacy and data ethics standards. But then, where do we go from there? Well, we also want to make sure that Alberta companies have access to sovereign compute, so that if they are building the next generation of a new technology, that they can confidently say that their intellectual property is secure and in their hands, and that none of what they've trained on those engines and in those environments is being sucked into an American company's intellectual property, right? So we can be using some of the open source models on sovereign compute, and then the innovators will have full control over their intellectual property. And that will mean that we're not just building things for the benefit of other countries, we're building things for the benefit of Albertans and of Canadians. And that's going to be, I think, a significant turning point for Alberta and for Canada in terms of technological development and technological adoption. And so that if we figure all of that out, that's the foundational energy that's required in order to power all of the AI applications. Then going forward, I think for us it's just we've seen in the private sector, we've seen what Toby from Shopify published about we are an AI first company now. Everything needs to be looked at through the lens of AI, and if you haven't tried AI to do something first, don't expect me to authorize you to go and hire a new employee. I think that there's always going to be a little bit of differences between how governments do things and how private sector do things. But I think we can take some inspiration from what some of these companies are doing and say, how do we become AI first? How do we look and say, is there a way to use AI to be more efficient at delivering this service as a government? Is there a way to develop new tools that will be really exciting? So I think, in healthcare, we've got lots of opportunity in diagnostic imaging to automate that and to increase the accuracy. There's a lot we can do in terms of predictive analytics to say who's most at risk of a heart attack before it happens, and how do we intervene and help them to mitigate the risk so that they don't end up having that heart attack, they don't end up needing that heart surgery. If we're able to start using the power of AI inside of our healthcare system, we can prevent some of the most costly medical interventions before they even happen, and build significant capacity into an overburdened healthcare system. So for me, I don't look at it as we need to do less in healthcare to get our spending under control. I think we need to do more with less, and the only way to do that is to use AI and to use technology. So I think, just to sum up, if we focus on the foundational infrastructure, the compute infrastructure in a sovereign compute environment, so we can make sure that Alberta and Canada are protected from, and that the innovations we build can be proprietary in the hands of Albertans and Canadians, that's going to be critically important. And then we just need to lead by example by using AI in everything we do. And if we do that, our healthcare system is going to function better. Our justice system is going to function better. Our social services programs are going to become more sustainable, and we can help more people in a more effective manner. Our education system is going to function better. Everything we do as a government is going to be better, and Albertans are going to have a better quality of life. And we'll be able to do that while keeping the lowest taxes in the country.
Awesome. We've talked in the past about trying to get tech talent into government and working on some of the incredible challenges and problems that the government's working on. I feel like now that you can lead with, but we have a bunch of H100s, want to come use our cluster? Maybe the recruiting dial might flip over. Sabrina, it's been really great to work with Google because you guys have been long investors in training, period. And whether that was, early investments in things like digital literacy, in internet literacy, often for, K to 12, and now looking at, AI literacy, I guess maybe a broad thing, why does Google invest so much, in an area that doesn't necessarily, feel like it has a direct line impact to Google? And then why were you really excited about this initiative and investing in this area specifically in Canada?
It's something I'm really passionate about. And, Google's goal is to make AI helpful for everybody. And that starts with understanding what you're dealing with, right? So we've been in the skilling game for quite a while. We have a platform called Grow with Google. If you go to Grow with Google, there's a lot of different courses. But the most popular course for Gen AI, kind of just understanding what it is on Coursera, is the Grow with Google course called Gen AI Essentials. And over 54,000 Canadians have taken it. It's a micro credential. So, I did it, and I did it kind of like in between meetings, and you can do it in less than 8 hours, and it just gives you a foundation. Then there's another one called prompt engineering, and you can start to go along. But that first AI essential one, with these courses, when people take them, we go back to them and we ask them about, what have you done since you've taken this course? Have you had any outcomes in your job? And it turns out that 75% of the people who are taking these Grow with Google courses are actually getting a positive career outcome. They're getting a new job, they're doing something different, they're getting a promotion, they're getting a salary increase. And that's the point, right? How do you use training to increase better outcomes for Canadians? It's not about training to check the box. It's training to drive an outcome, right? To have an educated workforce, to increase value, to build new things, to grow new areas of diversification for a company. And I think this is really important, and that's why we invest in it. And, a lot of Canadians want this. It's a new tool. They want to get their hands on it. And what we've been missing, I think, from an ecosystem view is that post-secondary moment, right? Like when you go into school, I have two 14-year-olds, and, right now it is very risk-based for them, where they're kind of worried about using the AI because they're not sure if they're going to get in trouble. And, I have to work with them and be like, you don't have it, you don't write it. You got to use it for co-creation and understanding and brainstorming. And I think these are gnarly problems that we have to figure out together and figure out with government, with educators, with post-secondary institutions, with Amii together. And that is what this $5 million is for. It's actually to start to propel that thinking and to find ways that we can scale how we integrate it into the curriculum and we get it out to students at large. So, Cam, the why we invested in Amii is like you've been in it for a while, right? Like you've had the research, the primary research, you know how to apply it. And now we want to work, with you and all of the amazing post-secondary students and post-secondary institutions to get it out into the hands of folks, because there's a great opportunity to untap, and the workforce of tomorrow is really, really going to need it. So we got to start with the students of today.
I love the lead in to Tamara. A question I wanted to ask you. We talk a lot about industry and what industry is interested in, and what academia as a whole. How are institutions grappling with this? I'd love to chat. For you to talk about students And what are the students asking for? What are you hearing from students about what they feel like they need to be successful, what they need to be able to drive forward their entrepreneurial endeavors, what they're doing, after they graduate? Like, how are you thinking about this, and what are you hearing from students in this environment?
So I think the problem is that the students don't even know what to ask, right? Because for the most part, we're still at a moment where, as I said earlier, they're primarily being told don't use it, or be careful how you use it, or you might get in trouble if you use it. Like, we're doing a lot of the risk avoidance kind of approach instead of the opportunity maximizing approach, right? And part of that is just because creating new curriculum is hard, and it takes time, and it takes a lot of knowledge, and the process of change in a lot of higher education is challenging, right? There's a lot of gates that we have to walk through, and developing curriculum that is future forward, that helps our students get what I call life-sustaining careers, right? Which is exactly what AI will prepare them for, is something that we are still grappling with. And so since we aren't giving them the tools in the and we don't know how to broach the conversations well with them yet, I don't think they even know what they should be asking, right? So they come in knowing, well, I'm told that I should do this thing, or I'm told that I should be in tech because, right? So they're focused on the outcome, but they have no idea of what the process should be to get there. And they shouldn't have to. That should be our role, right? As a higher education institution, that should be our role, to be helping them figure that out. And so that one of the reasons we at NATE are excited about all of this is because it'll increase speed to adoption for the new curriculum. We'll know that it's appropriately vetted by people who would actually help do the hiring afterwards, that would take the graduates from across Canada. And we know that it'll fulfill the needs that we have here in Alberta for what Albertans need in order to be successful too. And then as we go through that process, we'll be able to give the language back to students, especially if we're starting younger than by the time they finish their high school diploma and they're already out in higher ed.
Yeah, I love that. I love the minister mentioned K-12. Last year, we ran a pilot program with teachers in the province, and we ended up working with 400 teachers and getting in front of 50,000 K-12 students in the province. And this thing of, if we can start early, if both on the them being a part of society, a part of civil society, if we can have them really understand this area and be literate in the area, what we set them out to be as citizens, and then also heading into the workforce, we want them coming into post-secondary pushing, saying like, I want this, give me more of this, can there be more, or could you do more of this, and maybe get out of that kind of like, okay, what am I allowed to do versus not. I always find the more we can get students to push, the more we kind of innovate together, with them. Sabrina, maybe on that note, kind of building on top of, this workforce that, we do this right, we work together, we have this incredible impact on our workforce. How do you see that impacting industry and businesses across Canada? If we can start to, let's have the most AI literate workforce in the world. What happens to Canada if we do that?
Well, I think it's the AI literate workforce, but also, for me, it's also that you have to have bold goals, right? Like, you have to have a destination of what you want to do it. And AI isn't about just the literacy. It isn't just about the tool. It's to drive a business outcome in business, right? So that $230 billion is for all of you and all the Canadian businesses to unlock an upside potential. And so, there's a lot of different use cases that we've been seeing. We talked earlier about the adoption metrics. They're a bit fuzzy, but I talk to a lot of leaders, a lot of small businesses, big businesses. Almost everybody is trying it. I don't know of many, especially larger companies in Canada, that aren't trying AI. They're just not all scaling it as quickly, and that's at 26% implementation. That's 10 points lower than globally. But where I'm seeing a lot of really bold, value coming out is there's a lot of things going on in back office, call center integrations, really cleaning up process. Coding, massive. I think 75% of engineers are using some sort of form of coding assist. Google actually uses it, and 25% of our code is written with a coding assist. And we've just made our Gemini Code Assist. Actually, there's a version that you can subscribe to, but there's a free version for everybody to use. And I think this boost in productivity in that is absolutely huge. And then there's other areas like marketing and advertising, et cetera. There's a small flower shop that we work with that actually used one of our AI-powered tools, which is called PMax. And these folks are flower store merchants. They're not technical people, and they helped. They work with the AI, and it helped them actually boost their sales by 10% and return their ad spend, which is like their return on investment on that spend, by 30%. So they're seeing really great outcomes, and I'm very hopeful to not just large businesses adopting, because Canada is a land of, SMBs. It's 98% SMBs. And I think this could be a great tool to level the playing field, that a small business here in Edmonton has the same potential tools to be able to get stuff done as a large business might have had even 18 months ago, right? Like that, some of the tools that they're able to use today actually didn't exist. So I think there's a lot of potential for businesses. We just got to adopt, and we got to scale.
I love all this talk of outcomes. Can I just offer a quick little story to build on that? So, you've talked about some great examples on the small and medium business perspective, but I just want to offer one more from the government side, because it's really important and it's meaningful, and these are the types of stories we're going to be able to tell, practically every week in the upcoming year. So the Department of Infrastructure came to us a little while ago, and they said, we manage tens of thousands of real property locations on behalf of Albertans, whether it be schools, hospitals, or other public facilities. And we do this all through spreadsheets and paper-based processes today, and it's awful. And you can think about thousands of leases, thousands of agreements with counterparties who are using those facilities. It's a nightmare. And so they said, we want to do an RFP to go and hire someone to build a new digital platform that will manage this for us. And this all began a couple of years ago. So it took them about 2 years to scope out what they wanted. The RFP went out. The RFP was really vague, as often is the case when government's doing an RFP for technology. And ultimately, only 2 companies bid on it, both of which were the big 5 consulting companies, household names you would recognize. And the one that was shortlisted as likely to receive the bid, their bid was $57 million. It was going to take them 3 years. Now, in my experience doing this now for 6 years, running the technology backbone of government, I can tell you that was guaranteed going to become $100 million over 6 years. And at the end of the 6 years, what they gave us would have been obsolete. So thank goodness, my deputy took a look at this and said, we're going to kill this. We're not going to go to market with this RFP. We're going to take a couple of weeks and do a little homework and use some AI tools to help us. And what we figured is that we could actually use some AI systems to use some computer vision to monitor the screens, the Excel screens that folks were using, and monitor their workflow. And then we could use an AI agent to interview the folks who were doing the work to say, what do you need the tool to do? What is your workflow? What are you actually doing? What are the problems with your current workflow? What is a preferred outcome of a workflow? And it could automatically then build the roadmap to say, what do we actually have to build and how are we going to build it? And then we can use AI prompt engineering to help us develop the code faster. And so we came back and we said, we can actually do this in 18 months, but we will give you monthly upgrades to your workflow. So within 1 month, you'll already have an improvement in your workflow. And the month after that, it'll get better and better and better. And by 18 months, it'll be done. And you know how much it was going to cost? $5 million. So from 57 to 5 million, we're saving $52 million. We're saving years of time, and we are impacting the productivity of an entire government department right away. This is the power of AI. This is a real world outcome. It is happening in Alberta right now. And so I hope that gets everybody excited to say, this is real, and we're just getting started.
Yeah, you know what? It's hard not to get excited about a 10x and a real example, because everybody talks about 10x engineer, a 10x improvement here, but a lot of those are we did a study and we could have 10x improvement. Actually seeing it live is incredibly inspiring and impactful. Maybe talking about that, because I think one of the things that you've done with the ministry is that traditionally tech would be in this field of computer science, computer engineering grads would be the ones that are doing AI, and still great, still being led out by a lot of those grads. This is awesome. But when you look across your department, probably not 100% computing science grads. So you're you're having the impact, and this is being driven out by a lot of people who come from various different backgrounds. So can you talk a little bit about how both within the ministry and then maybe across Alberta, you're thinking about driving AI literacy and driving AI, workforce readiness, and seeing this impact maybe like outside of what traditionally people would think as a STEM discipline?
Yeah, so while again, it comes back to the principle of leading by example. So tech and innovation as a government department, we're the tech nerds in government. We're the ones who use technology to get things done for every government department. So we support all of the different departments in government with technology solutions. And so for starters, I want to get every employee in technology and innovation to be comfortable and confident in using AI in everything they do. And so some of those folks, yes, they will have the traditional computer science backgrounds, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them, they might not have even started in our department. They've been civil servants. They've been in public service for their entire career, and they eventually came over to tech and innovation. Well, we can help teach them these tools and help them to, maybe it's going to be in terms of briefing note generation, so that instead of when I ask for a briefing note on a topic to say, what's the latest, greatest on that infrastructure project we're doing, instead of me going to my deputy and saying, can you get me a briefing note? And then he goes to an assistant deputy, and then they go to a few executive directors, and then they go to a few directors. And then 3 weeks later, I get a briefing note that 40 people touched before it came to me. Why can't I just say all that information is in our institutional databases and our systems? Why can't I just say, what's the latest? Why can't I query an AI tool that says, what's the latest information on this project? And it could automatically generate it. These are the kinds of things. You don't have to be a computer science. Like, I'm not a computer science guy. I did a business degree, but I know that I could use that type of a tool to make my time more effective, to use my time more effectively. And so we can have, whether they're writing speeches, whether they are coordinating flights for travel, whether they are doing briefing notes, whether we are developing code, whatever it is that we're doing, we can use AI. And what we did is we're calling it the AI maximalist teams inside of tech and innovation. We started with 50 people, but our goal is to get it to where everybody's a part of an AI maximalist team. And the whole idea is we're equipping you with the tools, we're giving you a mandate, you have a license to go and try things and maybe make a few mistakes along the way. That's okay. That's how innovation happens. And some of the results we're seeing in that in just the first month or so has been really exciting. The goal is we get tech and innovation to 100% adoption inside of our own team, and then we can start working in going to the other ministries and say, yeah, it doesn't matter if you're computer scientists. You're probably not. That's actually a good thing. Let us help you learn how to use these tools in the context of what you are experts in. And so imagine a world where every public servant in the government of Alberta is now proficient in using AI tools. That's going to help to unlock productivity that, 3 or 4 years ago would have been unimaginable. And why does that matter? It means that in all of those areas where we have wait times, in all of those areas where it's a pain to interact with government because there's a long lineup, or it takes a long time to get an approval time, it takes a long time to get a permit, it takes a long time to get an answer on something, you could get instant answers. And high quality answers, and you could have a much better experience in dealing with the government, and it won't cost more money from the taxpayer. In fact, it is likely to save a ton of money for the taxpayer. So we can have better services, better turnaround times, better experiences for individual Albertans and Alberta businesses, all while saving the taxpayer money. This is the power of AI in the public service.
I love that mentality. It's very similar to when I talked to ATB about how they start thinking about integrating, when early on they were thinking about integrating AI, and the mentality that they flipped, and we see that companies that succeed at this do this really well, is they flip this bit from come and convince me that you should be able to use this tool to I expect you to use this tool. Here's the guardrail, so you're not just like wandering around without understanding. Here's the guardrails. Within this, I'm expecting you to use that. And we know that not everything's going to be perfect along the way, but within there, you're fine, and I have your back for you to use this. But the flip side is I expect you to use it. And that drove, I thought ATB has done an incredible job at integrating into AI into what they're doing. We've certainly seen, how fast in the last, 6 months your ministry has been driving out internally, and now the impact across government. And two industries that you wouldn't normally say are the fastest technology adopters, banking and government, right? But that mentality, if that mentality works there, I don't think there's an excuse for any other business to have that bit flipped and to be able to really have this mentality of, no, you're expected to use this. And now, here's the guardrails. Now let's see what you can actually impact if you do.
If we can do it in the government of Alberta, anybody can do it. And that's part of my vision, is just lead by example, show people it can be done, and hopefully that will inspire folks to join us in this journey.
Awesome. Well, hey, maybe as the last question, we will ask the unanswerable question of each of the panelists, which is just, okay, looking ahead, 5+ years, what are the AI skills that we think students are going to need and the workforce is going to need? And what do we need to do to deal with the evolving demands that we know are going to happen over the next 5 years? So Tamara, I'll start with, you get to answer the unanswerable question first.
Okay, so I have to answer an unanswerable question. That's an interesting conundrum. I think for us, it's probably about how can we start to treat AI as a knowledge partner, right? So academics overall are hired and maintain careers as being knowledge experts in a certain area of a discipline that they've studied in or that they have worked in for a while and they now teach in because they want to give back. And so how can we start in our higher ed education in Canada to start to look at and use AI as a knowledge partner for educating and enriching the lives of Canadians through better understanding AI as something that is not just a tool, but also a partner in getting things done and getting fulfilling careers. That's the best I can do for an unanswerable question.
Yeah, great answer to the unanswerable question.
Yeah, I think about this a lot. Again, I have twins, right? And so I have like the A/B test at home with all of this, and they're 14, so they're gonna, we have to figure that out together. But I've said for a while that I think that the skills that are needed, it's like the unicorn of the future of work is a combination of left brain and right brain with a foundation of curiosity and resilience. And I think the left brain, you got to understand the tech, you got to understand your math, you got to understand how this works, right? Because it's really important that you do get this. And, a lot of work involves this. But on the right brain, if you hear everything that, Mr. Glubish, you just talked about everything, it's about change. It's about leading change, and it's a human business. And that's really, really, that's the right brain skill, working together, collaboration, problem solving, getting stuff done. It's an adaptive change. And then the curiosity is because it is always going to be learning and it is always going to be changing. So we have to kind of figure out how we learn, how we adapt, how we move with it. And then the resilience, everything is iterative, right? How do you learn? How do you figure out what to scale? How do you figure out what to cancel? How do you figure out what is the bold goal that you're driving and what are you prioritizing? So I think, again, left brain, right brain, unicorn, foundation of curiosity and resilience would be my bet.
Awesome.
So the unanswerable question. I mean, this is a tough one, but I'll take a stab at it. So I would say first, we want to make sure that everyone in Alberta understands both the power and the possibility of these tools so they can be inspired to go and try and find ways to use them to do something exceptional. We need to counterbalance that without scaring them, but we need to counterbalance that by saying, here are the safe and secure ways to do so. Here's why sovereign compute is important. In some instances, you probably don't want to use a commercial tool from OpenAI or one of the other big models. Here are the examples of when you would want to use something that's maybe open source on hardware that you control, or hardware that is sovereign in your home jurisdiction. Perhaps something that Amii's hosting, or perhaps something that we're hosting at Tech and Innovation. So that folks can make smart decisions about, what are they using the tool for and what's the right way to use it. And then I think, so that's kind of one foundational piece. I think a second foundational piece would be just understanding how to use these tools as a companion to help you to understand what is the problem you're trying to solve. So how to use AI to say, help me to define the problem that I'm facing today. Like I have a rough idea of it, but maybe interview me, ask me some questions to help me to better articulate what is the problem I'm trying to solve. Help me to understand the technological landscape that is relevant to that problem. Help me to understand best practices that are relevant to that problem. And then now help me to articulate what I want a solved future state to look like. If I can solve this problem, what do I want it to look like? What do I want that outcome to be? What do I want my experience to be once I've solved that problem? Now help me to understand what are the things I might need to do. Build me a roadmap. Help me to understand how to get there. And what are the skills that I need? What's the expertise I need to draw upon? Who are some of the leaders in the field that I could go to? What kind of skills can I upskill for myself to do this myself? What can AI help me do as a non-technological expert? And then what are the things that maybe I need a technological expert to help me to do? But by using those tools to help us to better understand the problem, better articulate the problem, better articulate our vision, then when we go out and talk to the folks in our network to say, this is what, whether you're going to your investors to say, this is what I want to do and this is why you should entrust me with the budget to do it, whether I need to go to Treasury Board and say, this is what I want to do and I need a budget at Tech and Innovation to go and do it, but here's the return on investment. Or whether it's you're just going to your colleagues to say, this is what we're going to build and this is what I need you to do, this is what I need you to do, and this is what I'm going to do. Like at every step of the way, when you actually go to execute, you're going to be more persuasive and just a better storyteller to explain to folks what you're trying to do and what everyone's role needs to be. And that's going to increase the odds of success exponentially.
Awesome. It's really exciting. Again, with this investment from Google, this idea of this base layer, I think is really important. And especially in a world where like everything's iterating more and more quickly, there is no longer a set it and forget it education. You have to constantly be learning. And the exciting part about it is, now with more and more of these language models, you have the ability to have that companion along your learning journey that you probably in the past would have to either go find an expert or see if you can dig in and find the right Reddit thread online to learn something. Now to have that companion to learn alongside you is incredibly important. Well, again, thank you everyone so much for joining us this morning. Maybe perhaps both to our panelists and another big round of applause for Google for their incredible investment in this. Thank you. And thank you so much to our panelists, and we look forward to seeing everybody throughout day 2 of Upper Bound.